Welcome to Eastside Group's podcast, where each week Pastor Chad Mann and Emily Watson will chat about the need for discipleship, what it is, and how we as believers and as a church are working towards being disciples who make disciples. If you're new to our podcast, Eastside is a church who exists to transform Fort Smith and beyond. Our purpose here at Eastside is to gather, grow, and go. Learn more about us at myeastside.tv. Let's get started.
Welcome back to our Eastside Group's podcast. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Emily.
How are you?
Excellent.
Good. I know
Yes.
you're excellent because PR is in the
full
house.
I was beginning to wonder if I was going to be recognized. There's like you guys going on. I'm like, I'm just here. Just sitting
You feel like
here
a third
as
wheel, don't you?
wallflower or something. Yeah. Jeez.
So today we are having a conversation with Pastor Rick. He is our lead pastor here at Eastside, and we got a lot of good things to talk about. We are talking about the future of the church, the future of the Big C church. Yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
And it has changed over this. It's changed. It's always changed, but especially over this last year.
Yeah.
Through this pandemic. And that's the conversation that we're going to tackle today.
Right. So a year later, and we're still going, what's going on? You know, and some churches are opening back up and seeing, 100% return attendance. Some have closed their doors, depending on where you're at, what your demographics look like. And I mean, so there's a lot of questions that people are asking. I'm sure church and ministry leaders are trying to answer.
Yeah.
And I think, PR, along with other lead pastors, constantly trying to get a pulse, not just of their own church bodies, but what's going on regionally or in the United States as far as church culture, So, our first question that we wanted to think about was, how has the pandemic affected the church's evangelistic efforts? You know what I'm saying? And I know that's a pretty broad question, but how has the pandemic affected the evangelistic efforts of the church, like this past year, and how do you think it will affect it in the future?
Well, you want the bad news or the good news first?
Man.
Let's go with the bad news first, but make sure it's the bad news.
Yeah, I know. They probably don't know what's going on there, but I kind of, in a all-staff meeting just a couple of days ago, I asked that very question, and it just kind of like went, I gave the bad
good
news
news.
as good news.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Switched it up.
Well, the bad news, based upon what Tom Rayner, who's a church leader expert or, church growth expert, the bad news is that before COVID, about 6,000 to 8,000 churches were closing their doors every year. And what they believe they're seeing in this year of pandemic and possibly for the future is that could jump up to 16,000 churches a year.
Man.
And he broke that down to 40 churches a day. And that's just hard to fathom.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is that possible? Because you don't hear of it. It's not really around you that you're hearing that. But that's what they're projecting, up to 16,000 churches a year closing their doors. So obviously that impacts evangelism. But the good news is the mandate that Jesus Christ gave to us has not changed.
No.
Right.
So the good news is Matthew 28, right? Go and make disciples. So the mandate has not changed. It's just going about to fulfill that purpose, that mandate that he gave to us. That's what is changing and will probably change in the future. So churches are closing. It has definitely made a negative impact on the church in that regard. But the positive piece of that is the gates of hell will not prevail against his church.
Amen.
So the mandate stays the same. We know Christ is victorious. We know that the gates of hell, the enemy, will not prevail. But what do we do? How do we get there? How do we fulfill that? And so in Luke 12:56, Jesus said to the Pharisees, he said this, "Why do you not know how to interpret the present time?" How do you not know how to interpret the present time? So it is very important for us to interpret the present time for, the time we're living in. And man, do we know what's ahead? No, we don't. But we know, again, Jesus has commanded us to do something, and that is to make disciples. And so I think how it affects evangelism is, how are we going to really learn to come alongside people, to share our faith, to share the good news of Christ in a way that's comfortable.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's kind of how the pandemic has changed. Now, I don't know long term if that will remain the same, as far as when you visit with people and, well, are you close enough to me,
right,
or too far away? Are you wearing your mask? Are you not? Have you had your vaccine? Can you show proof? You know,
right.
have you had COVID, and so you're good to go for a while? You know, that whole thing. How do we get close enough to share with people in a way that makes them comfortable?
Yeah. That's a great question. And when I think about the history of evangelism, you know, I think about mass evangelism movements.
Yeah.
And Billy Graham would be in front of
Crusades.
thousands of people gathered in an arena. And we saw the movement of those. And we also saw small group evangelism. And then we also saw church evangelism, where, hey, you build a relationship with someone and you invite them to the church, and
Right.
the church does the rest, kind of thing.
Right.
But I think, if anything, the pandemic, like you said, has taught us to get back to Matthew 28. And that is what is essential.
Yeah.
Because through all of this, we're still around our neighbors. We're
Right.
still around our coworkers. We're still around people God has put in our lives for a reason. And so why not maximize on those things,
Sure.
and equip our people to go and make disciples?
Right.
In the pandemic, the pandemic has separated us, right? And so it has created a challenge to be able, again, to get close enough to people to visit with them, and where everybody feels comfortable. And so, but what I do believe, and it's almost like when 9/11 happened, there was a spiritual, I don't know if awakening is the correct word, but there was a spiritual inquiry. Right?
Yeah.
People were like, okay, what's happening? Where's this going? Churches were flooded. And then over time, kind of, you know. And so, but I say that because I do believe what the pandemic has done and will do is give us great opportunity, because I believe people will want to have spiritual conversations.
Yeah.
Like, again, where is this going? I mean, this has
Right.
affected the whole world, not just the United States of America in one central
Right.
location, you know, kind of thing. This is everywhere. So I think how it has affected evangelism is going to be based upon having spiritual conversations that people, I believe, will want to have, and having them in a context of them being comfortable with having those conversations,
Right.
physically. I mean, I don't know. I may be making more of it than I need to, but that it has separated us, and
Right.
people are nervous, and how, you know,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be it has to be, like you said, large gatherings.
Yeah.
Billy Graham and
Handing out literature. People aren't going to
Right.
take what you've handed out.
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
because you sanitize that.
Yeah. Methods
So
are changing.
It's
Yeah.
going to be, I mean, it was happening before COVID, but I think we're going to see even more of it.
Sure.
That it's going to be based on relationships.
Yeah, I agree, and always has been, you know,
Right.
of course, but even more so, we feel that burden, you know, like, man, if I'm not going to share, who will? Sometimes we could have if I just take them to this event, like I can remember when I got saved in 1999, I mean, I had a friend who was talking to me about the gospel all of the time, okay? But he also took me to a big mass evangelism outreach event at a big church.
Yeah.
And it was there.
And it was there.
I heard
Yeah.
it for like the millionth time, but God just got a hold of me in that moment, like, man, you know.
Yeah.
So we've put a lot of hope into those kinds of events and trust in them. That's not a bad thing at all. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying that. But when that's kind of removed, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, thank God for my friend who shared the gospel with me no matter what.
And I was going to ask
but-
you real quick, do you think that moment would have changed in that that event you went to if that person had not been investing in you or pouring into you or sharing the gospel with you?
That's a wonderful question. I think that's part of it, sowing seeds, watering that, and God causes the, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't say.
Mm-hmm. But it shows the importance.
It does show the importance
that
of
relationship.
investing in people, no matter what. And then online, I think a lot of our missionaries globally, International Mission Board and those that are, had to come home last year. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they were already doing social media in these countries, trying to push the gospel out. But it like ramped it up, their efforts, because like this is all we have right now, So our church even began to put more funds into supporting some of those efforts in the Middle East or in China, and they're seeing fruit from that, So it's like, we can do our evangelism online, so it's good to think about. And I think God is, like you said, the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. God's doing
not
it.
worried about that.
Right.
No,
right?
no,
We're not worried about the church surviving, even though doors are closing or what, not worried about it surviving. It's just how do we go about in a post-pandemic world of best reaching people with the gospel.
Yeah.
And I think these are some things to think about, and maybe over time it all goes away and we don't have to worry about it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, but I do think it really has to be steeped in relationships.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into the next question. What are ministry leaders and pastors like yourself feeling right now in terms of leading the church? Well, we had a great Sunday this past Sunday, Easter Sunday. We always have a great Sunday, but this Sunday we saw more people come to our service, which really just fires me up. I think fires us all up.
Sure.
Like,
people who haven't returned in a year,
right,
and are finally back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt it's encouraging for sure. Yeah, to see one another, right? I mean, that's really the biggest encouragement is to see more people, and because we have lived in a year of separation and isolation and all. So, well, let me put you guys on the spot.
Sure.
What has it caused you to feel? And then I'll share you.
Well, I would say it's caused me to feel incapable. It's caused me to feel inadequate. It's caused me to feel dumb. I don't know what else to say. I just don't know. I mean, the first several months of the coronavirus and things shutting down our church, and when you're a pastor or a ministry leader that's overseeing groups, ministries, and gatherings, and sending teams to various places for whatever, and all of a sudden that's yanked out from underneath you, you're like, well. What do I do? How do we do this now? So I felt like, man, I don't know what to do. Now, I would say as things have opened up a little bit, people become more comfortable with things. And I feel a little bit better. But I've had to be more creative. And that's not my, I mean, we know that's creative. No, he's not. And that's why I do read a lot of books or articles or look to other leaders or mission leaders that like, hey, what's going on? What do you got? What are you seeing God do?
Yes.
So to answer your question, it's caused me to feel at times inadequate.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and what a lot are feeling.
And I would also say feeling like, what am I supposed to do? But also this time has almost been like a gift to the church, because even as our culture has changed, and let's just be honest, a lot of our methods have needed to change just in the Big C church to get the gospel out there. It's almost been a gift for those things to just happen, or to speed those up a little bit. And so even through this time, it's like, it's been a challenge to kind of filter out the non-essential and the essential being those relationships, going back to relationships and connecting with people, staying connected. Because it's almost like this pandemic threw in no more connecting. Yeah. But yet, no, I mean, we can still connect creatively with people. And then to also, I felt like we found rest in this time, like we've slowed down a little bit again to see what is the most important, what is not important. But then also in these moments of things being filtered out, look at where is God moving? Where is God working? And hone in on those things.
Yeah. And so I think that, so with that said, I believe pastors and church leaders are all feeling different things.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think there are some that are feeling fear and uncertainty. What does this all mean? How's it going to look? Will people come back? Will we, be able to survive? Will we be able to pay the bills? And again, look at the projection of churches closing. And so, I think there are pastors who feel fear, pastors who feel uncertainty, pastors who feel tired.
Yeah.
I believe that. I think there's pastors who feel overwhelmed just with the fear, with the uncertainty, with the tiredness. But I also believe there are pastors who feel resilient. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I want to be, and that's where I want us to be, to feel resilient. So this is a great opportunity. The church will survive. I'm not worried about that, but the Big C church will survive. And so, but to feel resilient in this is opportunity and opportunity to really look, and as you said, okay, what's important, what's not, but what is necessary, right? What is helpful, and to focus on those things and do them well and have resiliency. No matter, the voices that might say, well, we want to go do this, or we want to do that. We want to go back to this or go back to that. And being resilient enough to know what your purpose, what your vision, what your mission is. Yep. And God will bring to you people that's going to help you accomplish that. I believe that. I've seen it in my ministry over all these years. And be resilient in staying the course. Yeah. Staying the course. So I think pastors, and I would say I have felt all those things. Yeah. I felt them all. Right. Fear, uncertain, tired, overwhelmed, but yet still resilient. I still feel hopeful. So I think there's a mix of things that pastors and leaders are feeling.
Yeah. I was reading an article the other day about pastors feeling like a drain of decision making in this time right now.
I saw that one too.
It just takes a toll on them.
Right.
And that's the thing is like I'm not.
And what's the right decision?
Right. I'm not the lead pastor here. You are. And I've had just these little things that I've had to make decisions on, and so when I read that, I was like, man, that did kind of affect me differently. Like something like it's the unknown or the uncertainty, you know, of like, oh, if I make that decision now, is that going to work out or not? It's always that. And I think about when I was reading that article, I thought of you. I was like, man, to lead a whole church through this kind of time, man, can you go through all of those emotions like you just said? So, I think it's important for us to be praying for our pastors.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Because even us as sheep or sheeple, as we like to say,
you remember, you are listening.
We have to be resilient as well, as the people that make up the church, make up the local church body. Like we have to be resilient and faithful as well, because that helps our leaders. That helps our the resiliency of our pastor.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I one of the things I think I struggle with is my identity. So, like, is my identity in my success, or is it in Christ? And so, and that can be a challenge. I mean, because when if you're driven and you do want to be successful, whether that's in business or in ministry, you want to be successful, but is my identity in that, or is it in Christ? And understanding that God loves me not for what I do, but for who I am. Right. Yeah. And really, that's been something I've been reflecting on lately. Are those things right there? So,
well, thank you for your transparency and honesty, because most pastors don't admit that. And that's a good trait to have, because it does.
I'm not saying I have it. I'm reflecting.
Right. But it's good to be aware of that. I mean, man. All I have is Christ. I think of that song. All I have is Christ. We sing it.
Ooh, Chad's going to sing for us
No,
today.
I
I don't
am
think I've heard him sing. We don't want it to happen.
Let's move on to the next question. We think about online church. We look at we're all looking at numbers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right. I've heard a pastor, I don't look at numbers. I don't know. Are you
Numbers
lying?
can speak to the health of the church.
They're important.
I was scrolling Facebook, and obviously different things come up on your feed and all, and some churches and their posts, and I can't tell you how many of them were posting numbers.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, numbers, and mainly from Easter, because everybody's pumped,
Sure,
right?
sure.
More people came because
Right.
one, it's Easter, and
I know.
and so so many of them were just, hey, we had this in attendance, and we had this in baptisms, and we had, and that is one thing that I've tried not to do.
Yeah.
And
it is exciting.
It is exciting.
So we're not trying to say it's not.
Who are we
but
boasting in, really? As pastors and church leaders, who are we really boasting in?
I know, man.
Just
Yeah.
be careful with that.
Well, let's think about that in online church, because we've had online church, so to speak, and like you can view online if you're at home. Before the pandemic, you could watch things, watch our services and whatnot. And when the pandemic hit, it was like, now we've really got to look at, we got to bring these people from the living room into our gathering. We pay attention to them in the sermons.
Mm-hmm.
We take note, and I did, hey, recognizing people watching us right now and trying to tune in. So you do a great job of bringing them in to like making them feel like they are there. So I was thinking about it, how online church, because I think I've talked to some people in the church that are like, I'm very comfortable at home.
Yes.
I've become so comfortable at home. And I'm like, well, maybe we need to stop doing such a good job.
Yeah, Aaron James.
Maybe we need to
stop doing such a
decrease
good
that
job,
quality.
so they'll come back. So I mean, let's ask this question: How can online church affect church growth, whether negatively or positively?
Yeah. Oh wow.
I know.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And maybe let's think about positively right now.
Right.
How can online church affect church growth positively?
Well, question: can a person be part of the church by watching online only?
All right, we need another episode.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we'll do that then. We'll come back to answer that can a person be a part of your church by being online only? And I'll give you the short answer, and then we can discuss this later. But I believe so, and and this is what we're seeing in churches, that they're hiring and bringing on online pastors and facilitators, and really trying to connect. I mean, aren't we seeing that? Where is it? Long Hollow.
Yeah.
Aren't we seeing their online is reaching people from all over the country, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, and other churches are doing that very well, and I think we're in the baby stage of doing that. And Aaron has brought us to another level in our watching online viewership and all, and is actually in the process of making it even better.
Yeah.
And I won't get into what that looks like, but he is in the process of making it better. And so, I do believe that, I'm glad that we have taken it seriously, and we are trying to further reach people with our online. So I believe, yes, online church is essential, and it's going to help the church grow. It's just a mind shift.
Yep.
It's thinking of it differently. And I know it's a struggle. I've talked with my wife, and we've had these conversations like, how does that work if they never connect with people and it's strictly online? How does that, and never have that physical, interaction kind of thing. And so I think that definitely would be worth revisiting. But I do think it helps. It has helped people get to know your church before ever attending your church.
That's what I was thinking. It's the front door of the church,
Yeah.
and somebody could tune in 1 or 2 or 3 services and then decide to come in person,
Right.
and be a part,
Right.
make a commitment to be a part of the church.
We have
because of
seen that this last year. I mean, people who have come on to our campus, visit our church. I've talked with them and saying, well, we watched for a few Sundays online, and we just wanted to come.
Yeah.
Taking the next step.
So I think that's a way of looking at how it can affect a church growth, because maybe they tune in, and they're like, yeah, I want to go experience that in person. Or, you know what? I don't think that's for us. And so then they tune into someone else, and then they go, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're going to find a church.
Yeah.
And if that's the way they do it, I probably would do it that way if I wasn't in, if I was looking for a church, I'd be looking at it like that. So I think it's a positive thing. I really do.
Somebody could hear the gospel for the first time through just coming across
absolutely
the service.
And text next steps because they want to know more about
That's
Jesus
right.
Christ, and then we get that, or the church gets that, and
Yeah.
reaches out to them and plugs them into the new believers course or a virtual new believers course.
And again, it goes back to the fact that methods are changing,
That's
but
exactly
the message
right.
is still the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to understand that we have an opportunity to reach people that wouldn't otherwise be reached.
Yeah.
That's what we need to remember right there.
Yeah.
And so it is a mind shift.
Yeah.
And I also think, think of it like, I know you have, people can take us wherever they go.
Yeah, that's true.
Before it's like, oh yeah, it's lake day for people during the summer. They don't come to church.
Now there's no excuse.
Well, they don't come to church. They go to the lake, and people are transit, and I get it, and I understand that, but they would go off and have no way of staying connected with us while they're off.
Right.
Now they can watch us in their boat.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating it, I'm not really, but I'm just saying it has presented a great thing.
Chad's over there fishing.
But I just look at it as a positive thing.
Yes.
And we can discuss the negative later, I guess. Because I would like to think through what are the negatives of that. Because I'm just thinking through the positives here, and I see all that as positive. Because someone might say, well, but if they take us wherever they go, they'll never come.
Right.
And they blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think that is its own
where
episode.
it can be negative. And that's where it can be negative, is when it's taken to an extreme of people becoming complacent.
Right.
In that.
And that's the thing, is I think the negatives that we may be talking about in our next episode will bring about a positive response from ministry leaders and people in the church. It'll cause us to be more intentional, more thoughtful. I think about that. I'm like, where are they? If they're doing this, then pay all the more attention to them, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right. I think the biggest one there for me is that it's a great opportunity to reach people who wouldn't otherwise be reached. I mean, just like you said earlier, putting money into social media for the missionaries that had to, and how many more people have they touched and reached?
Right.
I mean, so I think it's great. Man. I really do. Yeah. So if the pandemic has done one thing, I think it's expanded the reach of the gospel.
We think it's shut down the world, but it's actually, in some ways, opened up doors for the spread of the gospel.
That's right.
Or even urged people to be more evangelistic on their own throughout the week. Yeah. I don't know.
Yep.
So let's make sure we've talked some more about this.
Let's
well,
this
has been great.
Conversation with PR Part 2.
Yeah. So we've heard a lot about the future of the church, and it is a bright future.
Yeah.
And we know that.
Amen.
Yeah,
so thanks for being with us, PR.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as always.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me once every about 8 months. So appreciate that very much.
We can record multiple episodes today and insert you in.
That's right. All right. Well, until next time,
make disciples.
Make disciples.
Who make disciples? Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Eastside Group's podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you in the next one.